This is the Scorsese or MCU logical explanation video. There are many ways to arrive at the solution of this puzzle without guessing. This is just one way. Starting with rule number 7, we know that the actors who have played Iron Man and Spider-Man in MCU films can be found in the corners of the grid. These are Robert Downey Jr. and Andrew Garfield. According to rule number 5, only cast members who have starred in DC Comics films can be in row 1. Since neither RDJ or Andrew Garfield have starred in a DC Comics-based film, they must both be in one of these two bottom corners. From rule number 3, we know that RDJ can only be adjacent to other MCU cast members who have not starred in a Scorsese-directed film. Therefore, the only stars he can be adjacent to are Florence Pugh, Lupita Nyong'o, and Scarlett Johansson. Rule number 2 states that column 2 can only have male cast members, therefore RDJ must belong in this bottom right corner so that he can be adjacent to these 3 MCU co-stars. We do not yet know where exactly they should be placed. We know from rule number 4 that 3 cast members from Greta Gerwig-directed films must be on the same diagonal. The only 3 cast members in this grid who have starred in a Gerwig-directed film are Florence Pugh from Little Women, Timothée Chalamet from Little Women and Lady Bird, and Margot Robbie from Barbie. If Florence Pugh were to be here, then Margot Robbie would have to go here in column 3 to follow rule number 2, and Timothée Chalamet would have to be placed here in row 1. However, Timothée Chalamet has not starred in a DC Comics adaptation, and so his placement in row 1 would be breaking rule number 5, which states that all cast members in row 1 must have starred in a film adaptation of DC Comics publications. If Florence Pugh were to be placed here, then Timothy could be placed here in column 2, and then Margot Robbie could be placed in the top left corner. However, from rule number 4 we know that 4 cast members from Christopher Nolan-directed films are on the same diagonal. This diagonal must be used to satisfy this rule. This is because we know Andrew Garfield must be on this other 4-tile diagonal, and he hasn't starred in a Christopher Nolan film. Margot Robbie has not starred in a Christopher Nolan film, and so these 3 Greta Gerwig stars cannot be on this diagonal. This must mean that Florence Pugh has to go in this final position adjacent to RDJ. Timothée Chalamet must go in column 2 of the diagonal to follow rule number 2, and so Margot Robbie must go in this final position on the Greta Gerwig diagonal. To complete the 4-square Christopher Nolan diagonal, we have RDJ from Oppenheimer, and then Scarlett Johansson from The Prestige must go here. Since Florence Pugh and Timothée Chalamet are already placed, the only 2 remaining cast members who have starred in a Christopher Nolan film are Leonardo DiCaprio from Inception and Robert Pattinson from Tenet. Since Leonardo DiCaprio has not starred in a DC Comics-inspired film, he must be placed here in the diagonal, so that Robert Pattinson, the Batman, can go here in row 1 and the final position of the Christopher Nolan diagonal. Since Margot Robbie is already placed here, the only remaining cast members who have starred in a DC Comics adaptation are Joaquin Phoenix from Joker, Robert De Niro from Joker, and Amy Adams from Man of Steel. Since Amy Adams is the only female, she must be placed in column 3 of row 1. From rule number 6 we know that DiCaprio must be adjacent to his Scorsese film co-stars, including the upcoming Killers of the Flower Moon. This means Robert De Niro should be adjacent to DiCaprio, and so should be swapped with Joaquin Phoenix. According to this rule, Mark Ruffalo from Shutter Island and Cate Blanchett from The Aviator must also both be adjacent to DiCaprio. The only 2 spots available are here and here. Cate Blanchett must go in this position in column 3 since column 3 must only have female cast members. Finally, the only 2 unplaced stars are Samuel L. Jackson from the MCU and Scorsese's Goodfellas, and Jodie Foster from Scorsese's Taxi Driver. Since only male cast members can be in column 2, these 2 must be swapped. If we check logic now, we'll see the logical is solved and without any guessing.